Brought to you by Nordic Podcast.
And Josh Stinton.
Josh Stinton.
Stinton.
Yeah.
Glad you could join us, man.
Thank you very much for having me. This is great.
It's not often you meet like a real adventurer. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I feel you should have come with a different hat, like an Indiana Jones hat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was unfortunate. All my leather's in the dry cleaners. So, yeah. No, it's fun. You know, I got to be honest. Like, 6 years on, it's still quite. Like the fact that my name has adventurer associated with it is still quite fascinating, I must say. Like, it's a lot of fun because I'm the guy that got kicked off the football team when I was like 15 because I was no good. I actually got kicked off the team and was asked to be a cameraman instead. So that was the narrative I started to tell myself at an early age, and then now 3 world records and just cooking up a 4th and just having fun. To be honest, that's the key.
That's unreal because again, I follow you on social media and I see. Is it fair to say that you're highly competitive?
You know what? No.
Really?
The funny thing is I think that's why a lot of the sports that I do, a lot of the challenges I take on are fairly individual. Because when I'm like, I play social like rugby here in Oslo or various other things, but when it comes to team sports and being super competitive, or like beating that guy to that line, that's not really my fire. I gotta be absolutely honest.
So it's more beating yourself?
Yeah. And you know what? That came from early on when I was training for VOTWEAR, the first challenge I took on. I remember I haven't thought about this in a while, so we're off to a great start. I love this. But I remember I was out there roller skiing, right? Because I lived in Sydney and I've never skied in my life. And I'm out there I Googled how to train for cross-country skiing on land.
So you had to Google it first.
So I had to Google it because I didn't know what roller skiing was back then. Now I live in Norway, I certainly do, but... So I Googled it and I get these roller skis in and I'm like roller skiing around and I was pretty confident with my time. I thought, my 5K time and my 10K and ultimately, after a while, like higher numbers, 20K. And then a couple of Swedish guys that I met were pretty keen roller skiers and they'd done Vasaloppet before. And they asked like, we'd like to train with you. Man, these guys were gone, like right off the line. And I remember I was like, oh.
Wow. Right.
And then I had some really good coaches in my corner, like training coaches in Sydney. And one of them, he's an ex special forces like Navy diver. And he told me, he's like, don't you ever think, he goes, I don't care what race you're in, what competition you're in. He goes, you are your competitor. You're you. He goes, you run your own race always. And he said, you'll see it. People that are completely killing it in a race and they get to the end and they realize they're in the lead and then they'll slow down. It's like that person, that man, that woman is not in their head. So always run your own race.
Because we do see that you do have like 3 world firsts, 3 world records. And one of them is like you with, what was it called? Hand cycling?
Yeah, hand cycling.
Across the length of like Japan?
Yeah.
That's insane. How do you prep for that?
Well, actually, that was the first time. When I started that challenge, that was the first time I'd ever hand cycled in my life. So I'd never,
So you started it and that was your first time?
Yeah. So what I did is I lived in Stavanger at the time.
Okay.
And I emailed the team at SIS, the Stavanger gym, Stavanger University gym. And I asked them, I said, do you have any machines by any chance that I could train on like hand cycling? And this lovely girl, Sandra, got back to me and she said, yeah, why don't you come around? We have one. We'll have to dust it off a little bit, but come around and give it a look. And sure enough, it was this machine. You're sitting there,
right?
And I know this is audio, but we're sitting there, and your hands are alternately rotating. And I was sitting on that training for quite a while, and like my shoulders and all that are kind of getting into shape. Well, then when I started this in Japan, got the hand cycle over to Japan. It was actually my dad brought it over from the U.S. Like he took a flight to bring it over, so it didn't get caught at customs. Legend, Dad, love you, Dad. But brings it over, and I get this hand cycle, and I built it for the first time ever in the southernmost tip in Kyushu in Japan to start this 2,112 kilometer journey. And then when I built it, I realized that the hands were actually simultaneously rowing, so it was completely,
so it wasn't
opposite
like it
wasn't alternating like a bicycle would be. These pedals are at the same.
So it was more like rowing.
Exactly. So my brother's on the support team. He's like, bro, did you realize you were going to be rowing across this country? He's like, nah, not the surprise for me. So
that's completely different musculature, more back, more legs.
100%. So your lats, like your back, and so a lot of it came down to, it was great for the summer body thing, right? A lot of it came down to like your abs, like just kind of like punt like core strength up a hill, and I wasn't training any of that. So, you know, they say racing's training, and
that's insane.
But it took me 22 days, nonstop, about 9-10 hours a day, every single day, hand cycling.
Like, what makes you go, you know what, I have to do this. I have to put myself through torture.
Yeah.
In something that I have never done before. I have to literally Google it.
Yeah.
Yes. And then when you do prep, you prep for the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And then you still go out and you kill it.
Yeah.
So why?
Yeah, we'll say everything to me boils back to the fact that every challenge that I take on is to raise awareness and finance and funds for a new children's cause somewhere in the world. I must admit, and I appreciate that kind compliment, which I do take, and maybe being competitive, which I'm not. I'm also, I would say inherently I'm a bit of a lazy person. So if I didn't have the kids behind each of the stories of the challenges for me to rely on, because I often get to meet the kids. For Japan, I actually didn't get to meet the kids at that point. I was working with nurses and counselors, and actually accessing the kids was a bit tricky. But for every other challenge, I get, I'm a mentor for grief counseling camps or meeting kids in rehabilitation programs, cancer programs, you name it. And when you meet them, the resilience and the strength and the human care that I've met from young people, especially in times of need, it will blow you away. When you're surrounding yourself with that, you don't have the excuse within you to go, nah, maybe I don't want to do this.
Right.
Because, yeah, and I've got my living room's covered, which I'm very proud with, covered in artwork from kids all over from these different charities, drawing lions and saying this is you, and bicycling across the ocean or whatever, and all these things. And it's just you can do anything you want. You absolutely can.
That's amazing. So your fuel is obviously partially for the kids, for this raising awareness and also helping, almost like a non-profit, you could say, or how would you define it?
Yeah. So for me, I mean, really to boil it down. So I never earn any money from any challenge, and I never will. I will never change that model. For me, it's essentially a glorified kind of passion. I mean, it's my higher purpose. They say, in life we have our 3 levers of motivation. Right? There's the carrot, which is we do this because it's going to be good for us. There's the stick, if we don't do this, we better do it because it's going to be bad. Then there's the third, which is often overlooked, and that's the higher purpose, the higher level of motivation. And that is, this is intrinsically important to me as a person that I do this. It means something to me. And when I really tap into that, that is, I never expected to make a life and a career out of these challenges, which I've done. I'm very happy to explain how I've done that, because my background is from business design methodology from the big 4 firms. So I've got a management consulting background, and that's great. And I take a lot of the modeling that I had from my business world into the challenges, and I still do some work in that space. I work with sustainability initiatives here in Scandinavia in that, so I earn money from that. I will never earn $1 from it. So from a carrot perspective, don't have that. From a stick perspective, don't have that either, because it's not bad for me if I don't go out and do this thing.
No one is gonna chastise you for not breaking a world record.
Or also if I don't do it, I'm not gonna lose sponsors. I don't have sponsors.
Right.
So it doesn't matter. But what does matter is the higher purpose aspect, and really knowing that if I don't do this, well, in me, it hurts in a way, because then I think, well, that's a group of kids that I'm not going to get to meet. That's a group of kids that aren't going to get to have their stories told. Because I've been very fortunate off the back of these. I was never in the media before these challenges, but now there's a lot of TV and radio and all that, which has been good fun. Not because of just follow Josh on Instagram, but because I get to use the story and the ridiculousness of the story to get attention from the media, to use that as a medium to talk about these kids.
Exactly.
And I've got one girl in particular I actually really like. If and when we find space for it, I'd like to talk about her. But
we can. We have more than enough time, man.
Yeah? Shall I dive into it now?
Go for it.
All right. 2, actually. So this is for my 3rd challenge, which I did. It was the hardest mountain bike race in the world. So it was 700 kilometers across the Arctic up here in Alta, up in Norway.
Wow.
And yeah, the Arctic's, if you're thinking about a nice bike ride, don't
it's
go
not
there.
The Arctic's. No one thinks about going through snow or tundra with a bike.
You know what else they don't think about? Is Arctic mosquitoes. And those things shouldn't even be allowed to exist. They're like little birds, seriously. They're just blankets on you.
I heard they're massive and aggressive.
Yeah, if I had a tenth of the persistence that these Arctic mosquitoes did, I could retire tomorrow happy. Right? It's ridiculous, man. But so I was out there for that challenge, and that challenge brought a lot into my life because it was 700K, and we were in a team of 3, and we made it to the third checkpoint at 200 kilometers, and we were disqualified because we were about a couple hours over time. Bittersweet, because it was like, oh, thank God this is over, because we'd been cycling for 39 hours nonstop at that point, climbed 3,600 meters, glaciers. We were hallucinating because we were exhausted. They started the race at 6 o'clock in the evening just to be that much more mean. And I love those guys. They're really good people up there. They're my kind of people. But we were out there in this team, and we got disqualified. And that hurt because it was a hit to the ego because that was my third challenge. And up until then, I'd never not completed something. And
that was the first.
Boom, boom.
Yeah.
But in that challenge, and here ties to this story. So for that challenge, I was helping a charity here in Norway called Mange Bekker Små. Sorry, my Norwegian is coming to life. I know I just butchered that, but
that's good.
Yeah,
you've been here for like 3 years.
Yeah. And in between dialects, I was in Stavanger and Oslo. I use that as an excuse.
There you go.
Yeah. But so I was supporting this charity, and what they were doing is they're helping families in Lebanon. So they're Syrian refugees, Lebanese children, and basically helping people in the area learn how to deal with this new system of harmony that was needing to happen there. So I went over and I flew from Australia. I was living in Australia at the time, actually. Flew from Australia into Beirut and went in and got to meet a bunch of families that were there. Actually got to meet the Minister of Social Affairs of Lebanon. He invited us to go and meet a bunch of it was really beautiful setup, but in every refugee camp they have a chief, like a captain, and you have to get permission from that person to enter.
Oh, I see.
So with the team from the Ministry of Social Affairs, we got to go and have conversations with them, and they size you up, and they're like, yeah, you're welcome in, because it's their neighborhood, right? Yeah, okay, there's tents and whatnot, but that's their home. And we got to go in and meet a number of folks, and I was with a good friend named Stuart Dawson from Australia, and he had this, he was just doing some filming, because we were trying to have conversations with families to be able to get the vision from that, like video from that, to be able to take back and share on media to show exactly what the charity was doing, and not from a political, religious, you name it. It was just from a human perspective. And I got to meet a couple families, and one was, it was an interesting experience. I swear, we walked into this room, which is the closest thing I can describe it as. Walked in this room, and I felt this person's presence before I saw her, right? And I remember walking into this room, and it was like, whoa, there's something really beautiful here. Couldn't see her because she's so small. I looked over in the corner, and here's this 6-year-old little girl with these little camo pants on, sitting cross-legged in the side of the room, and just sitting there like this beautiful little Syrian girl, 6 years old. And she had a mask on her face. And I remember I asked this a couple of years ago, and I said, why is she wearing a mask? And she said, well, she's just come over from Syria not too long ago, and they lost some family members on the way, and now they're in, and they have her name is Ritaj, and Ritaj just got cancer, so she's got cancer in her neck and her throat.
Oh.
And she's quite embarrassed about that, so she wears this mask. And I remember sitting next to her, and man, she's one of the most beautiful kids. And Stu had some candies on him. He gave her a piece of candy, like a little gold wrap candy.
Right.
And it looked like every single Christmas morning happened at the same time. She's like, oh, right. And she comes over and puts her little hand in my hand, and just big eyes, just like super excited that people are there to visit, you know. And we were talking, and then so I was like, so what's the case? You know, what do we... Like, how can we help her? And they're like, the view is, well, we kind of can't, because it's going to take $20,000 to raise the funds needed to get her surgery. And in fair, systemically, $20,000 is going to go to so many other tents and ovens because winter's coming and it's cold in Lebanon. And I got it from a mechanical perspective, but from an emotional perspective, I didn't.
Yeah.
And I remember saying, I was like, look, guys, I had a real hard time with that. When I left, we left the camp and, got to say goodbye to the family, and I was in this van leaving, and I was actually crying. it hit me. I'm thinking, how could we just say goodbye to this person? And said, well, for $20,000, I said, you know what? Even if I need to go back to Australia and get a personal loan, I'm going to do it. Like, that girl, like, she can't pass away. Like, it just can't pass away.
Right.
And we took videos from that interview, or from that chat with her and her family, went back to Australia. I was invited to ABC News, which is a Saturday morning news program. And on that show, they invited me to talk about, it was a pretty serious business show on Saturday morning. And it used to, like, in Australian media, I used to be like, the crazy daredevil's back. But then with this challenge, it started to shift. And they're like, well, Stinton is here to talk about helping refugees and Syrian refugees in Lebanon. So I got to go on and talk about this story. And in the interview, it was a live television interview. And they meant well. The interviewers were lovely. But they said, so tell us about these the Syrian girls, or understand you met a Syrian girl, and they're Lebanese and they're refugees. And I was like, whoa, hang on,
right.
This interview is actually not going to progress if we don't remove the labels. So I'm actually not here to talk about Syrians or Lebanese or refugees. I'm going to talk about Ritaj. She's 6 years old, and we need help for her. And off the back of that, a number of organizations reached out, and then some of the people involved with the charity itself went through their own organizations, and we raised the money. We got her the $20,000, got her surgery, and she's alive and well.
That's
in
amazing.
Beirut. So you see that there,
right.
The tattoo on my arm. That's actually her name. And that's just to be front and center in the middle of my world, man. Little Ritaj Al-Mufasset is her name, just to constantly remind me of the power of having a strong vision and bringing people together to do things. We saved a girl's life.
That's amazing, man. That's a noble direction, and it's going above and beyond. As you said, you didn't need to. No one would have said anything if you did or didn't.
Well,
but the fact that you did and go to such lengths as well.
Yeah.
A lot of people would be like, logistics, I kind of get it. As you said, you get the mental aspect, but not the emotional.
Yeah.
A lot of people, that would be it.
Yeah.
That
fair.
would be it. But that's really commendable that you went above and beyond that way, because it changed her life.
Yeah.
And it set a precedent and an example as well of what's capable and what is possible to do to change her life.
Mate,
and the impact
100%.
of that. No, that's amazing, man.
I said, I'm and don't get me wrong, I'm selfish about it as well, because she changed my life, and having that whole experience, it wasn't just like, I came in, did this good thing, like, absolutely not, like, and that's never the case. And so to tie that back into, because that was for the mountain bike race, as I said, I didn't complete that checkpoint, so we got disqualified, and I had like a small little period of time, like a day, where I thought, I'm gonna come take this race on again, blah blah blah, and then I thought about it, and I was like, hang on. What am I actually doing here? Am I here to mountain bike race? I'm not a freaking mountain biker. I've never mountain biked before. It was actually the first time I've ever mountain bike raced.
Again, the first time.
Yeah. So, and then I realized, like, well, we saved a girl's life, and we raised a lot of money and helped other families in the process, and helped tell their story on national media across the world. That is job done. So
that was the goal. That was the purpose, and you didn't lose sight of that.
No,
it was accomplished.
Yeah, it was accomplished. So like, challenge is done. Right. So I moved on and hand cycled across Japan.
Dude, that is amazing.
Yeah.
So we have barely brushed on 2 challenges, and already the impact is tremendous. So I heard something about, was it across there was across a body of water?
Yeah.
What was that?
First person in the world to bicycle across the Atlantic Ocean.
You know how scary that is? You put me in this pool, and then you shut off the lights. I'll freak out. You bicycled across the Atlantic.
Yeah. To be fair, and the way that worked out was, I gave a talk in Mexico.
No, dude.
I love the laughs here in the studio. This is great. It's
because look, you can't.
Hey, I think, are you on Google, like, checking it out? Like, hey, this guy's full of crap.
Look, you can't play it down, man.
Yeah.
You can't play it. A lot of people would not go with a ship across the Atlantic. With a boat. How much more like a man-powered vessel?
Yeah. Well, to be fair, so I had both, right? So how it worked out was I gave a talk in Mexico. And in the audience, these incredible guys came up and said they were going to charter a yacht to go across the sea as part of this thing called the ARC, the Atlantic Rally Cross. And so it's not really a race, but like, yachts cross the sea every time in November this year, or this time of year. And they said they were going to do that. And they invited me to go, to which I said, yes.
Of course.
Yes. And then I said, what time? Whatever. It could be Tuesday. I'm in, whatever. But
shoot first, ask questions.
Yeah, 100%. Oh man, like
I'm noticing the pattern, man.
Dude, like present me signs future me up for things all the time. That future me looks back at past me and says, "What the hell is wrong with you?" that is usually the trajectory. But in the conversation with these guys, I said, it'd be great. I've never sailed before in my life.
Again,
yeah,
it seems like. Yeah, you're picking things that you've never done.
Yeah, exactly. So it's always that. Like it's got to be things that I have little to absolutely no experience in.
Is it deliberate?
Yeah, it's deliberate. Yeah. So and now I've kind of moved into the space of inventing things that have never been done. So and it's great because then you just get to start playing with imagination and and really inventing things. Because again, I gotta say, like, there's no way I would do any of this stuff alone, like, at all. Like, I come up with crazy ideas. I've got a couple people close in my world that I bounce these ideas off of, and then I start to reach out to various people and bring things to life. Which, I'm happy to actually. It's not actually announced yet, but I'm happy to go into what's next in a bit. Okay,
of course. Finish the cross-Atlantic one.
Yeah. So these guys, we were having this conversation in Cabo San Lucas in Mexico. This was last year, so the challenge was in November, so it was in June-ish. Yeah, June. And, so June before last. And so I was there, we were talking about this crossing, and I said, guys, I'd love to join you, but, one thing, and actually this is a thing I've been thinking about for a while, I've got a lot of stuff, a pipeline of ridiculousness that I like to think about. And I said, one thing I thought would be pretty cool is to get, like, an exercise training bike and put it onto a cargo ship and cycle as many kilometers as the cargo ship sails every day to cross the sea. And they were like, well, maybe we could do that. We could get a bike onto the boat. We're in Mexico, and there might have been some tequila involved. But
it wasn't sober mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was less than. Less than. But and I said, look, we could have some ideas to bring this to life, and none of us are captains. I'm not even a sailor, and I wouldn't put a life vest on the right way if it wasn't for these boys. But we basically strapped a bike. I was thinking we'll strap a bike onto the ship somehow. They had it was a big boat. It was like a 92-foot sailing yacht. Okay, it was a proper ship. And I'll just strap this bike down, put it up to a resistance mechanism, and then I'll race the boat across the ocean. All well and good until the captain got involved. They gave me the captain's details, and he's become a very good friend. But he's what he needs to be. He's a captain,
of course. So
they put me in touch with him. Like, hey, he wants to put a bike onto the ship. Is that cool? Like, just work it out. He calls me up, so I'm nothing but expensive for these guys. I'm expensive in terms of space. I'm expensive in terms of I'm going to eat a lot of food because I'm cycling. Yeah. I'm not going to be helping on the sailing list. I'm useless. Right. Like, I'm liability. I am liability plus.
At best.
At best. And so they said, so his name's Matt, the captain. He's like, mate, to get this down, he goes, you can't just strap a bike onto a ship. He goes, what's your sailing experience? I said, none. And I heard this on the phone.
Right.
And I said, mate, I said, look, what we can do is, ideally what we could do is maybe I'll get a recumbent bike. So that way I'm not standing upright on a normal diamond frame, normal bicycle bike. Right. So we'll get like a recumbent bike. So I'm lower.
Reclined or how?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, like reclined. So you're kind of out cycling like this.
Oh, right. Yeah. Almost like you would be in like a canoe or something.
Yeah, well, just like I was. Yeah, exactly. Right. Or just like I was on the hand cycle, but except not pedaling with my legs instead of my arms.
Right.
So I said, if we got this, if we got one of those, and he said, well, I mean, he wasn't completely combative about it, but he was being smart as to where I usually let. I usually let the details kind of work out. I just kind of follow the vision. And Matt said, well, what you'd need to do is build like a gimbal, like a gimbal mechanism. So that way the bike will stay straight no matter what the sailboat does underneath it. And so I said, okay. And he was saying, like, you need to do this. And I said, oh, yeah. So do you by any chance know any engineers? And he's like, yeah, I do. He goes, I had a business with a friend. He goes, damn it. Yeah, all right. He goes,
he was in just like
that.
Yeah,
he was in just like that. He's like, you're going to need to find a recumbent bike. And I was in London at the time. I was there for a talk. And I'm not good at eBay. So I got on eBay, and I'm looking at eBay, and and I found a recumbent bike, and I hit buy, thinking it was going to take me to the buying instructions, and I just got an email saying, "Congratulations, you've spent £1,000 on a on a recumbent bike." Well, brilliant.
On the first one you saw.
Oh, the first one that I saw. So I know. Turns out I could have got a much better one for 700, but whatever. But so I hired a van, drove out. It was 2 hours outside of London. Pick up this bike. Sent Matt, the captain, some photos. I was like, "Good news, mate. We've got a bike." He's like, "You ass! Like, why did you buy a bike?" I was like, I did it by accident. I just hit the buy button.
Right.
He's like, "Yeah, right." Like, oh, he goes, "You're gonna be not what I need on this ship,
No.
you know." But but so he and a good friend of his, basically Steve, in Lymington down in the UK, built the world's first bicycle gimbal for an ocean-going vessel. Got that thing together and sent it over to Port Denia in Spain. Got it fitted for the yacht. I flew down, tested it out, hooked the bike up to a resistance mechanism, and that's how that worked out. So I had to cycle more kilometers every single day than the boat was sailing to be able to actually officially beat it across the sea. So it was minimum 10 hours a day. So the boat in the end the boat in the end sailed about 5,800 kilometers in 15 days. And in that time, I cycled 6,434 kilometers. So I beat it.
You beat it.
Yeah. And when I got into, this is brilliant, when I got into St. Lucia, so it went from Gran Canaria over to St. Lucia.
Okay.
And got into the Caribbean, and the crew, like the captain, the guys were like, "Look, we need this bike off the boat. Like this boat is going to move on to do other things."
Yeah.
And so I went and talked to these folks in the sailing authority in St. Lucia. And I said, "Hey, this is a bit random, but I've got this bike on a gimbal machine or mechanism. Do you think any other sailboat would like to buy one?" And the woman said, "Yeah, we know who you are. We've been following this on social media. This is ridiculous." They said, "Well, we can't buy it, but we have a plan. If you'd be interested." I said, "Yeah." And they said, "If we can have it, we'll build a monument for you here in St. Lucia."
Wow.
And so that way that kids can go and sit on the first bicycle to ever cross the ocean. So now I've got a monument in the Caribbean.
That's amazing, man.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So anyway, that's it's just all sorts of ridiculous. So that was it for a charity called Los Cabos Children's Foundation, helping kids with various sort of recovering from various disabilities, cancer. I got to go down and meet a lot of these kids across a number of days in Cabo, and then
the cause always makes it worth it. Always makes it worth
100%. Yeah, without the cause, I wouldn't get out of bed in the morning to help build a gimbal bike or mechanism to sail across the ocean. Sounds ridiculous.
But how do you survive the nights on such a trip?
Yeah, well, because I didn't know what kind of routine I was going to have. As I said, never sailed. But so I would get up at about 8 in the morning, go out, and I would cycle for about 100 kilometers.
Okay.
And then I would eat a massive meal, take a little nap, go back up, cycle 75.
Right.
And then eat dinner, and then go back out and cycle 75. So I was punching 250 kilometers a day on the bike. And I just kind of learned that was my routine to do it. So sometimes I was out there, but I got to be honest, I love the nights. I was out there completely by myself. I had a safety harness on, with a little flashing light so people knew I wasn't out in the ocean. I was still on the bike. And I was just sitting there at top deck, middle deck, sails, absolutely nothing else around you in the entire sea. And some nights you'd have like dolphins jumping out like through bioluminescence, and they look like ghosts jumping out of the sea. And I mean, just absolutely incredible. So I did prefer the night. And then after, I would get off the bike, wipe everything down, attach my safety cable to the boat, walk my way back to the back, go down the cabin, have a quick shower, and pass out heavily. Yeah. And I repeated that 15 days in a row.
That's insane.
Yeah.
How did your body feel after that? What's the recovery process?
It's always different, to be honest. Yeah. Like in Japan with the hand cycle, I would so Eric, the guy that was running the support team, he would always take us to, and anyone that's been to Japan will know these onsens. So onsens are like a Japanese bathhouse kind of thing.
Yes,
so
I've seen those.
They're like men's and women's ones. And then so you go into obviously the guys one, and you have these, like, they have cold plunges and hot tubs. So I just go straight for the cold plunge, just shock your system, freeze down a little bit, get in the
exactly.
get into the hot tub, and then sleep The hardest thing about these things is just eating enough.
What do you eat though? Like, what is your diet? You're not vegetarian by any chance?
No, I'm not. No, which fully support that. But
yeah, of course. I'm just asking. Like, what's your fuel?
Yeah, no, it's. I just listen to my body.
Yeah.
And also I just put my grubby hands on whatever's available. Like after a while in the hand cycle challenge, in Japan, like I was eating. I had this like heavy craving for salt. And I was eating sandwiches that were white bread, lots of butter, eggs, cheese, lots of mayonnaise, and a lot of salt. Now, it sounds horrible, but without the salt, your body doesn't retain the water you're drinking.
Of course.
And
must have been losing a lot of electrolytes and this amount of sweat you're going through. And no, it makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's one thing I must admit. I mean, there's many things I could get smarter on, honestly, Mehdi, to be fair. But like in this one, the nutrition component to it for long distance things, especially for what I got coming up, because it's not going to be an opportunity to go back and get more supplies sometimes. So yeah.
So what do you have coming up? What's the next thing, and how are you prepping for whatever this is? This crazy thing. I'm a bit scared to hear.
Guys, I'm gonna be the first person in the world to run through the sky.
Run through the sky.
Yeah. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So and this hit me while I was out on the ocean. I was in the middle of the sea, and I realized that there was nothing in the air. Like, there's no birds, no planes. There's nothing for them to land on.
Right.
So I just and I was delirious. So I was like, like ways that people have engaged with the air before. And I just kind of started thinking, like, how interesting would it be if there was an airship that could be powered by a treadmill, right? Like a blimp or like a Luftship.
Right.
Like the kind of like what Roald Amundsen took over the Antarctic or Arctic rather.
Exactly.
But I'm thinking like a smaller version. And so I just had this in my mind, and I got back. So it's still in progress very much, but I got back to Norway and I called the Norwegian Civil Aviation Authority, and this poor woman answers the phone, and I said, hey, my name is Josh. I'm an adventurer, and I take on ridiculous challenges to support children's causes. And I'm just wanted to check with you because I have an idea about creating a running powered airship. Like, so what kind of permits would I need for that?
She hung up.
So you redirected me to a mental institute, and it was brilliant. She's just like, oh, the poor woman. She's like, I'm gonna transfer you. Hang on. I was like, yeah, okay.
This isn't exactly what to train for, man. It's not in any manuals, man.
We've got a code red. But so she transferred me through to this incredible guy that heads up the department. So I was speaking to the head of Norwegian Airspace, basically, and told him the same story, and he loved it. He's like, you got to be joking me. He's like, I've never had a phone call like this. Like, I'm not surprised.
It means you're on the right track.
Yeah, 100%. Dude, comfort zone pushing. And so I told him my idea, and he's like, well, you got a lot of work ahead of you. He said, but we would love to help you in the journey to get your permits. And he's like, well, obviously, are you an engineer? And I was like, nah. He's like,
are you a sailor?
Yeah, nah.
Have you biked? Nah. Has it stopped you?
No.
These are irrelevant, man. They should get with the program. These are irrelevant questions.
Yeah. And it's great. And I said, no. So then he went quite serious. He said, you're not to build this thing. Like you have to, work with professionals. And I said, well, actually, for many reasons, I agree with you. So so he connected me through to he recommended NTNU, and a dear friend of mine knows a person that was high up in the engineering world at NTNU. Called him. We ended up having a 2-hour conversation, which was supposed to be just a 1-hour conversation. Loved it. And I just flew up to Trondheim last Friday and met the engineering team. So we have 8 PhD students that were around the table brainstorming it. I mean, they're saying things like velocity and wind drag. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I just want to run through the sky. So,
this guy, I swear, man. That is hilarious. Honestly, it's really refreshing that you're going through this clueless.
Yeah.
In the sense,
there's no air quotes on that, mate. I'm clueless.
No, but it's like you are really going through it with one thing. You know how to finish a job. Yeah. One thing that you're 110% capable of, and I finish what I start.
Yep.
And then it's like the logistics. You're like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Outside of that, you just do the work.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're strong in your vision, and don't get me wrong, I get loads of people, and rightly so, people saying you can't do that, or you know, like you shouldn't be able to do that thing. And that started with VOTCast because I did VOTCast. I've never skied in my life, so the morning of the race, it was minus 17 degrees, 7 a.m. in Sälen, Sweden. It's Sweden, so there's like an ABBA cover band pumping up the crowd, and 16,000 skiers getting ready, and I've had skis on my feet for the first time ever. And I ended up actually getting sponsored. Yeah.
Again.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of my thing.
You keep learning in the exam, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I got through uni anyway. But obviously. But yeah, so I ended up, because of some TV interviews and some friends that connected us, I got sponsored by the Norwegian Olympic ski team. So they reached out. So here I was in the Norwegian Olympic suit. They loaned me the skis. They told me on the day, like, we waxed them for you. And I was like, oh, you had to wax them. They're like, yeah.
You wax skis?
Like, good thing you met us, man. Like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. And and so 7 a.m., the start gun goes off, gate goes up, and I push, and I hit the guy right in front of me because I had no idea how fast I was going to go. Just totally wrapped this bloke up, and he stands up. He's this older guy. Oh, lovely. He's turned around. He says something in Swedish, and I was like, I'm really sorry. I've never skied. He's like, what? Like Norwegian Olympics?
Right.
The start race of VOTCast. He's like, this is going to be the hardest day of your life. I was like, yeah, I know, mate. I just have to go that way. He's like, yeah, you do for a long time. I was like, yeah. So that was, and I did it. It took me 11 hours, 8 minutes, and 58 seconds. But the race organizer said I'm the first person to finish the race without ever having skied before. So that kind of set everything off on a journey from there. And when I was on interviews for that race, people were like calling in saying, you know, people have died in this race. You could have a heart attack. I was like, yeah, whoa. Cheers. Get that. And my thing is, I don't have this Superman kind of complex. Like, I'm just a dude from a small town. So I don't, like, I'm not think I'm like very athletic, like, trust me, I can do this thing. But it's like, well, I'm just gonna have a crack, you know, and maybe I do, like in the mountain bike race, maybe I don't finish it, but I'll be darned if I'm not gonna give it my best, especially when the net result is kids getting help. Checkmate.
Yeah, there's no lose. It's a win-win.
There's no lose, 100%.
How do you handle failure?
It's interesting. That's a good question because it's a necessary, dare I say, evil.
It's the yin to the yang, you know.
It's totally. And so when I lived in Sydney, I got into event production for a while, and I produced an event. I actually licensed an event brand called FailCon, and it was a day of celebrating how people have royally screwed things up. It was epic. And I think I learned early on, like I had Lane Beachley, so she's the world's champion female pro surfer.
Wow.
And so she carved the way for female surfing. Had her on, and she had this big story about, you know, she had, I think under her belt at the time, like 3 or 4 world championships. And then like 4 years in a row, she just kept bombing them, like wasn't making it. And so she counted herself as this massive failure, and the journey and coming back to who she was, and then she just started getting back on them, and then she learned she just had to pivot. You're not always who you are year on, year out, and year in, year out. And I had I got the mayor of Sydney to talk about how she screwed things up before.
Mm-hmm.
Had to turn the cameras off for that one. That was great.
No way. They actually had to turn the cameras off?
No, I'm just joking.
Okay,
no.
Like...
no. Yeah, because she started breaking things. No. She was just saying, like, basically making failure approachable, attainable, because it's necessary. Like, man, I screw up on stuff all the bloody time, and it's like if you don't really embrace the fact that you're gonna make a mistake, then it's I'll give an example. There's a book that I've been recommended to read. I'm reading right now, and it's called The Inner Game of Tennis. I don't know if you've heard.
The Inner Game of Tennis.
Yeah.
Is by who?
The author. I forgot the name of the author.
They'll find it.
Yeah, but this, so The Inner Game of Tennis, it was recommended to me, and I'm a big audiobook person, and when I'm training or running or whatever, I like listen to this stuff. And what is it? Timothy Galway. Yeah, love your work, Timothy. And I'll remember your name from now on, mate. Sorry about that. But really it kind of boils down to the dialogue that we have between two people in us. And person one is like the external kind of judge that looks down and says, like, mate, why didn't you do that better? Or like, oh, even and so person two is the one doing the action.
Right.
And person one is either saying, oh, you could have, there's a lot of tennis terms in it because he's a tennis coach, but it's like, your backhand could have been better, or you could have run for the ball better, or whatever. Or on the other hand, he's saying that person one, he or she, and all of us is saying, well, oh, good job. You did a good thing. But even still, when we have this internal narrative, when we give ourselves compliments for doing a good job, it's still kind of a criticism in disguise, because it's like, now you're doing a good job.
I see.
So it really goes through all this. And the whole thing is about just removing that person one and just not thinking so much about that narrative and just doing. And when we unmarry ourselves from the fear of making a mistake, I mean, we really have to ask deep down, and we all have different stories for very different and very relevant reasons. But when we ask deep down inside, like, who is it that we're trying to impress? I mean, and
who are you doing it for?
Who are you doing it for? Yeah, 100%.
What's driving your action?
Yeah, and there's many figures, and everyone's journey is different, and everyone's going to have different people that fill that role. It certainly could be a partner, could be a parent, could be a coworker, anybody. Like, it could be absolutely anyone. But a lot of times it's actually us. And that's one thing I learned early on when I was training for VOTWEAR, and then the day of the race came, when I really had some mental checking in to do. I was like, oh my God, I've got to go ski for 90 kilometers now, and I've never skied. Like, ugh.
90?
Yeah.
I'm not going to walk 90.
I don't recommend it.
How much more ski? I'm not going to walk 90 kilometers.
Yeah. So that's the thing that I learned, is that, the person that listens the most when we talk is us. It's actually not even the community that we're talking to, because we are the ones that are taking a big inhale on the story we're telling, and we know if we're full of garbage or not. So I know if the things that I'm telling you I want to do, if I don't actually have an intention to pull that off, it's continuing to create a dissension between the listening, learning, and caring self in us, and how we actually perceive ourselves. So when we are a virtuous person, and we do back up and say, no matter what, I'm going to do this the best that I can, failure or not, that relationship with ourself continues to grow, and then you'll find yourself, calling the Norwegian Civil Aviation Authority to get permits to run through the sky.
Exactly. How where are you in the logistics of that?
Oh man.
Do you know the distance? Do you know from where to where?
Yeah, my view is I want to run off of Preikestolen.
Oh my God.
Yeah, off of it.
What is it in English?
Pulpit Rock.
Pulpit Rock.
Yeah,
you guys can Google that and see. It's like a flat
630 meter sheer cliff face drop. But off. This is going to be a ways. It's in August of next year. Is the Sky Run, so it's a little ways off. But so it might end up looking very different to what my minds and the engineers' minds have right now.
Still
so
12
again,
months away or more.
Yeah-ish, and we have less, and it's coming quick.
True.
But it's again, nothing is really going to divert me from the vision that I have to actually pull this thing off. But in what shape or size? But the parameters that we have now are off of Pulpit Rock, across Norway, and into Akerbrygge in Oslo.
Yo.
That's what I want to do. So that's about
that's epic.
It should be good. Crossing the Hardangerfjord.
Right.
That should be about 400-ish kilometers through the sky as the crow flies, going at 700 meters up.
So across Pulpit Rock, you're going to cross there's a glacier in the middle, isn't it?
I'll tell you.
Let me know when you're up there.
I'll call you.
I think there's a mountain ridge or a glacier.
Really big Jotunheim Park.
Right. Is across that.
And that's part of the Hardangerfjord kind of area? There's so many people listening right now going,
yeah,
this guy is lost.
This guy doesn't know geography, man.
Please keep him out of the air. Leave crossing the country to SAS or Norwegian Air.
That's a good question. Like the navigation up there.
Yeah, so here's the thing with the engineering. So NTNU has been really clear on this is not going to happen unless they're 100% and triple tested that I'm going to be safe. So this isn't like, we'll just head off the rock and see what happens. I mean, because I don't have a death wish.
No.
And I don't, especially with a lot of kids and families following the journey, I do like the idea of really bringing out the fact that anything is possible.
Yeah, it seems like it. I mean, just listening to the way you approach these things.
Yeah.
You could say no experience, literally.
Literally. Yeah. It's just backing yourself. And but again, like to me, it's the 3 steps. It's first step, it's a vision. It's being really clear, being able to see, feel it, be in it. And so when you're there, it's real to you, like what that thing is. And it doesn't have to be while you're doing it. It could be, say for this, like running through the sky, finishing mid-August, being in Akebrygge, and it's, it's done, what that feels like, and talking to the families involved and the kids and people around there like, oh my God, like it could be like getting that feeling is super powerful, having that vision, and then working backwards from that and rewriting, as I said, rewriting the narrative. Give yourself the permission to be that man or woman that's going to bring that thing to life. Right. Because someone can guarantee you that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
And well, actually, I'll go further. Everyone can. It's just with giving ourselves the permission. And then the third thing, which I find is super important, is communicate that vision. Like, go crazy and build a team around you. Like, get good people involved. Because I said, like, mate, every single challenge is different. Every challenge. This is the most moving parts of anything I've dealt with before, as you can imagine.
Right. A lot of the other things you've done, you have tweaked certain equipment,
Yeah.
This one you guys have to build from scratch.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm actually on the phone now with a number of blimp providers from the UK to try to borrow a blimp.
Do they still make those things?
Yeah, surprisingly. And because of Corona now, they're actually making a comeback. Well, they're trying to make a comeback because with less flights, we're seeing less carbon emissions in the air. And blimps run at like 92% less emissions than planes. Oh. So they're like trying to push domestic travel via blimp, and these blimps can carry up to like 90 people. And so I'm like, no worries. You want some advertisement? Just load me your blimp. I'm just going to run that thing across the country.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it should be interesting.
No, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that's gonna unravel.
Me too, man.
that's not comforting to hear. It's like, look, there's certain people that shouldn't say that. You do not want the guy in the bomb squad going, yeah, me too, man. Like,
or your dentists they're going in like, hope this goes okay.
But that's fascinating. I mean, honestly, it seems like you run on focus.
Yeah. A great way to put it. You just nailed it.
No, because everything you're doing is like, let's see, let's find out. Yeah. I don't know. But then when you're in it, you're like, your fuel is focus. Because I truly believe, I really believe that with the power of focus, one really, like a magnifying glass and the sunlight, right? Yeah. When you focus that into a point, it burns. Yeah. You really harness the power of the sun by focus.
Yeah, and great analogy.
I feel that is kind of what, is your fuel. Yeah. You're entering areas that you kind of don't have a clue. I have never skied. I'm entering it. Yeah. But then focus pulls you through it. So I guess my question is, what goes through your mind when you're in that state of focus? Is it, as you said, the cause? Yeah. Is it, are you in your own head? Are you out of it?
It's... Yeah, that's and the awareness of that, Manny, I must say you've actually given me a bit of a gift. That's a really wise and insightful observation, because I think really a lot of my work does boil down to that. Yes, it's certainly the cause. I mean, look, I've got, for the Running Across the Sky, I'm going to support Right to Play here in Norway. So I'm walking billboard for them right now because I'm an ambassador for them for a year.
What is Right to Play, briefly?
So Right to Play, it's actually a Norwegian founded organization that does work for children all around the world through educational programs. So their whole thing is to protect and empower and educate kids using various programs. I mean, bringing books to schools that don't even have them, bringing field sports equipment to kids that really need them to incorporate play into their daily lives, helping kids be kids.
Absolutely.
And so they've got a lot of beautiful programs all over the world for that. So my effort is to help them help as many kids as possible this year.
That's amazing.
It's great. So certainly that is a part of my focus. But you're right. There's another side to it that is, when things get not if but when things get really, really tough, I have this headspace that I go into where it's kind of like, with all due respect to everything else happening in my life, it's kind of like you're either on the team or you're not. And I mean, I'm not just talking about people, but just things. And there's stuff I have to sacrifice all the time. And it's, when you get into that mode, it could be pre-challenge, during challenge, after challenge, continuing to tell the story in the media. You have to really, really hone in on first off, during challenge, your body will do what your mind tells it to. And you really get hanging into when things get tough and using fear, actually.
Using fear. Yeah. Deepen on that.
Yeah. So fear when controlled, and always should be, as best as possible, is one of the best friends you can have. Because it will keep you on track. Without fear, for instance, the mountain bike race, I didn't Google it. I got cocky. I wasn't afraid of it. Because I just did VOTWEAR. And then after that, my second challenge, I took a unicycle, one wheel, down a mountain off-road for 14 kilometers in Spain. Just learned a unicycle.
Wait.
Yeah.
We're not going to go brush that.
Yeah.
It's got to be like... So, did you know how to unicycle before?
You guys are like, did we just let an alcoholic into the room? He's just sitting here talking.
But the guys are verifying this, and obviously it's easy to verify. So it's not like
fair.
He's making it up, you know.
Yeah.
And obviously we did background searches, but the unicycle thing didn't pop up. So
I'm surprised by that. I'm very surprised by that.
No, it didn't pop up for me at least.
Yeah, fair.
But did you learn how to unicycle before?
I did.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah, no, that one I did do. So
how long did it take? Like, what was the most?
About 4 months.
4 months.
To learn, like a couple of months to properly, to learn how to unicycle. And if you want to check it out, the race is called Unicon. Unicon. So it's every 2 years there's a big there's a big unicycle kind of race jamboree somewhere in the world. And as part of that, mountain unicycling is one of the races. So about 300, 400 people get involved.
Right.
And just because of the ridiculously of it, all due respect to the sport, it's actually started by a guy named Chris Holm out of Canada. Really fascinating sport. But it's just it's a unicycle with a mountain bike tire, basically, and a reinforced tube and a disc brake on the seat.
Perfect.
And on one wheel, it's fixed pedals, and you're just flying down a mountain.
And you disc brake by reverse pedaling, or how does it work?
No, there's actually a brake under the seat.
Oh,
which I never learned how to use because it's like a pivot, right? So you hit the brake and it's like bang.
Yeah.
So it's like, I learned that you want to clean your face off really quickly, just pull the brake because there you go. Yeah. It took me an hour and 55 minutes to complete that race. I wasn't last. I was fifth.
That's amazing.
I was fifth from last. Super proud of that.
That's good, man. 4 of the guys are there.
Yeah, I represented Australia in the race. Everyone's representing the country they're from.
See.
So I was one of the guys representing Oz. That was So that was the second one. But yeah, again, but the same principles apply across every single one of them. It's just getting in and first off, and also. This look, it's an Oscar Wilde quote, but it's kind of something he said, and someone derived a quote out of it. But it is still one of the best things I think is said, which is, "Life is too important to be taken seriously." And if we lose the element of play, man, cash in the check. Like it's just
right.
Like that's why I think the lights go off. And I think we've got to keep elements of play in us and give ourselves the permission. And like you very wisely pointed out, man, it's about focus. Really is.
So when did this start? Like, how was your childhood? I don't want to go to maybe too deep. I don't know how much you want to share. But
can I get some whiskey, please? No. No, I say my childhood was brilliant, but it really comes back to I've super supported parents.
No, I mean in the sense of was this a trait we could see when you were a kid? Were you pushing boundaries then? Was this something you could predict by your behavior?
Absolutely, and that's why I bring up my folks is because both of them are that way. Like they're both really they're both quite entrepreneurial. My family, when we came from, my family's from Norway originally, and when we went over to the U.S. and we're in our farming space and all that.
Farming space, like an actual farm?
Yeah, like an actual farm. Yeah,
Did you own cats?
No. No.
You know why I ask?
No, I don't know why you ask that.
There is this protozoa called the Toxoplasma gondii.
That is the most intelligent thing I've heard all week.
I haven't even started.
That's amazing. Hang on, I've got a center for the rest of this.
Wait. So this protozoa, what it does is its life cycle is it infects a mouse.
Okay.
It increases the risk in the behavior of mice, so they go to cats. So they're like, eat me. Right? Because its final life cycle is in a cat. So for it to enter a cat, it infects mice first.
Yep.
Increases their judgment, so they take riskier behavioral choices.
Yeah.
And then they get eaten by cats. And now once they're in the cat, they're completing their life cycle. And then in the cat feces, they have spores. Now, when these spores are released, they say 11% of the U.S. population has toxoplasmosis. And 60% of certain populations in certain countries has it.
Okay.
And studies have shown that there is a link between risky behavior and toxoplasmosis. So my question of you owning a cat...
I'm sorry. My mind just instantly goes to Stanley. We just busted your whole Spider-Man theory. Like, we know how...
So
the mutated thing, it wasn't a toxic spider that bit someone. It was cat crap.
that explains two things, by the way. That explains why Tom and Jerry, why Jerry's always risking his life. He has toxoplasmosis.
Yeah.
And that explains also, and this is what the study was showing,
Fair.
a lot of entrepreneurs have it. A lot of daredevils have it.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
So that's kind of what, have you ever owned a cat?
Yeah, I have.
I would like to check you for toxoplasmosis.
Look, mate, can we do another episode on that? Come in and I will fully expose myself to toxoplasmosis.
You want to, look, wait. If you don't have it, you shouldn't have it.
Oh, yeah.
You don't need riskier behavior.
Yeah. No.
You already maxed out.
Turns out I'm negative. Get me some cats. I want feral cats that have been around feral mice.
No, we don't
Feral
need
or the better.
We don't need you maxing out there, man. Like, I've never met someone who's like at that risk level with inversely proportionate lack of experience in what he's risking.
Yeah.
Most people risk what they know. Calculated risks.
Yeah.
Like, let's pick base jumpers.
Fair.
They do 1,000 jumps before they go for base jumping with gliding. So it's a calculated risk based on a risk they know.
Yeah.
You go, I've never skied.
Yeah.
I'm going toward to raise something that stops hearts of people who have skied.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying, I'm saying like literally it is risky behavior. Obviously,
Fair.
you know this.
Yeah, sure. But I think anything can be. But risk is in the eye of the beholder, right? Worst quote I've said all day. But it just it's our risk propensity depends on the person involved.
Right.
And so
I could see what you mean by that.
So some people crossing the street can be risky.
I see what you mean by that.
So but I'm with everything you said. Like I think and I take this as a compliment. But I think it's for me it's. And maybe I see it in a different way, probably quite obviously so. But I think for me, it's not so much about, I don't actually see myself so much as a risky person. It's just, I like to really break down the myths and boundaries around us being able to take things on. Now, you say base jumping, for instance, I do get emails from folks or messages on Instagram or wherever, like from a number of folks about crazy things. And windsuit diving, like skydiving comes up. And for that, I'm like, nah.
How come?
Because I don't think that's a thing I can really train in, So for me, it's all about the long game of going, okay, that is something ridiculously hard in a very specialized field of sport or something. Right. To me, it's always physical stuff. Right. And from the journey from here to there is going to be a really, really long road. And for me, I like to I've got I must say, I think I'm quite good at an endurance mindset. So I can really tuck into the pain and just go, yep, like I'm going to battle this out. I can grind, absolutely. And especially when I get support and care from people around me and knowing that it's going back to helping kids, mate, like I will grind for the rest of my life on something if I have to. And then, which I fully intended with these challenges, like, baby, I'm just getting started. Right. Like, number 6 is coming up and I'm just going to keep on going until this whole,
How old are you?
39. So yeah, 40 in half a year. So yeah, I'm just going to keep...
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You're out here like outclassing people of 25.
Oh, no, I doubt that.
No, man. But if endurance-wise?
If they just give themselves, and many 25-year-olds do, but if they give themselves the permission, again, it's about that rewriting of the narrative.
Right.
Like, because I must admit, you put any athlete out there on cycling across the Atlantic, no doubt they'll get a better time than me. You put them against hand cycling Japan. They'll do it in 10 days.
I don't think so. I genuinely don't think so because I feel the mind will break first. They might have the body to back it up. Okay,
Fair.
You're right.
Fair.
But do they have that mindset? Do they have that focus, that drive?
Yeah.
Can they go through? The treadmill was primarily a torture device? I'm not kidding. Look this up. It was primarily a torture where you couldn't
I'm learning that now in my training for the Skyrun. Yeah.
So it's not normal to put yourself in a situation of expending that much energy and you can't get off.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean by, their body might handle it.
Yeah.
But can their mind? Because that is always what's going to break first.
Yeah. And I fully agree with you on that. And I've seen that there's like with VOTWEAR, because that's the first. I've never even run a half marathon in my life. Like I've never done anything that required me to stick to something. I've signed up for many half marathons and I've sold my bib right before the race. It was like, no.
Okay.
Like I was always that guy. And then VOTWEAR showed up and I had an opportunity to help. It was my friends, James and Christy. I actually had a conversation with them today, based in Australia, and they run a charity called Feel the Magic. And it's a grief counseling camp that helps children learn that they're not alone if their mom or dad has passed away, or their brother or sister, a loved one.
Right.
And so it's a camp that helps a lot of kids. And that's how this whole thing kind of kicked off. Like they were wanting to start a small charity. And I, through a number of conversations, through a very good friend of mine from Gothenburg, I found out about VOTWEAR, and I thought, okay, the hardest ski race in the world. I've never skied. I called James and Chrissy. I was like, look, would you guys like me being an ambassador? Because maybe if I do this race, we can raise some money for you. They're like, no worries, mate. We'll send you a T-shirt. It's like, awesome. And then so I was out roller skiing in this T-shirt. And then so all of that made its way back to helping them kick their business off. It's
beautiful.
And now it's grown. Like they're killing it. They're doing a great job having loads of kids involved. And I'm a part of, it's their work.
Right.
But
you definitely impacted it though.
Well,
but we'll have to rewind. Because the toxoplasmosis brought us away from you on the farm.
Yeah. So we're growing up. So again, back to my folks being like, if I called my mom right now and said, Mom, I'm thinking about laying an egg, she'd be like, honey, you'll lay the best egg. Like my just like that's the best thing I've heard. Like endearing support and care, and which has been dangerous for me and my brothers, obviously, because we just keep doing these things.
How many are you?
I'm actually the oldest of 7.
Seven guys.
So I'm 7 guys. So I'm the only one between my mom and my dad. They split when I was 6 years old, and then mom has new partner, and dad had new partner, and so a bunch of boys came out of that. And so I'm the oldest of all these, and all the guys get along. And I have one stepsister from my stepdad as well. So there's actually 8 of us. Oof. So I'm the oldest of 7 guys, 8 with my sister, and like
that's a big family.
It's a lot of birthday cakes, man. Like a lot of birthday cakes. But and they all get along. They're all back in the States, and they all get along like great. But so growing up, I'm tapping into that as well. I think there's some firepower knowing that I'm like the oldest of all these incredible bozos that are my brothers and my awesome sister.
Right.
But there's a role model thing in there as well. But so my folks being really supportive, but ultimately it comes down to I would spend a lot of time with my grandfather as a kid on the farm in the summertime. So I lived in the city, but then in summers I'd spend time on the farm, and my granddad would just drive around, and I'd go with him. He had this pickup truck, and we had this farm, and we would drive around and give food to families that he knew needed help, or we would give tools to families that needed support, or he would help build
really
stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, and I remember as a kid, like I didn't get it, because I was like 6, and I was like, well, what, Grandpa? Like, why don't we get money for this stuff? Because I'm thinking, because then I could have more toys, right? And I'd be brilliant. And he's just like deadpan serious and driving, and really lovely guy, but he had such a serious tone. He's like, Joshua, what a serious conversation. I wasn't Josh, I was Joshua. Like, Joshua, he said, if you have the opportunity to help someone, it is not an opportunity, it's a responsibility. He said, so if it's with things or with time, he said, it is your job if you can. And I remember when I finished VOTWEAR, my mom actually quoted the same thing. She said, I think because off the back of it, there was more TV interviews. Over 500 families signed up for that grief counseling camp, Feel the Magic, because of all the media that was associated directly from that race. And that's when I realized I had this interesting model in my hands. So if I keep taking on the hardest physical things in the world that I don't know how to do, create a crazy story around that, get a lot of media, and then that helps raise awareness for a children's charity, some magical stuff can happen. So that's it. So then going back to thinking like being that 6-year-old Josh with a mullet haircut, driving around in the summertime, and him saying, if you have an opportunity, it's not an opportunity, it's a responsibility. So I just hook into that.
That's beautifully said. It's a responsibility, it's a duty to actually, help, serve. Yeah. We are primarily put on this earth, I truly believe, to serve.
Absolutely, man.
And now you just got to find, how do I serve best?
Yeah.
What is my way? Yeah. And if toxoplasmosis is your tool, so
be it. Yes.
So be it.
Have you bought stock in toxoplasmosis? Like this
no.
Are you sponsored?
Man, no. It's just I've never It's truly fascinating. And jokes aside, it is really commendable though, and is Okay, I was an ex-pro athlete, so I have competed in professional
I can
sports.
see it, mate. I would not want to compete against you in anything. I'm not
Well,
gonna lie. Like, no.
In cycling, you'll kill me. In anything endurance, you'll kill me. But no, so I competed professionally in like track and field, 60 meter, 100 meter, 200 meter.
Bursts.
I competed competitively in American football, actually.
Did you?
Yeah,
Yeah, you got the
both
frame
did.
for it. Absolutely, man.
And I also went into martial arts. Martial arts, you could say, was my first love in a way. You know, that was what came.
What style?
So I started first. The very first thing I did was capoeira.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Okay.
And that was because my foundation was gymnastics. So
Yeah.
it came real easy. Like I even tell my brothers, like, if you get kids, you want to put them in sports, the foundation of having gymnastics
100%.
first.
That's anything.
Because then you
Man.
know body control. You know how to catch yourself if you fall.
Yeah.
Injury risk goes way down because you have that. You're not scared to be in the air.
Yeah.
So that was like the foundation. A couple,
Impressive, man.
but
I
then,
must say.
but then I entered, like MMA and Greco-Roman wrestling, freestyle wrestling,
Yeah.
right? So that was like my, as I said, first love, the talent.
Yeah.
I didn't really need to work hard for it,
Yeah.
but the mindset, going through all these things,
Yeah.
I really figured out that because there were people who were bigger than you, stronger than you, and then you would win. And then there were people who were weaker than you, smaller, and then they would win.
Yeah.
So there were discrepancies. That is why you do not just put them up against a wall, measure their height, their weight, and then this is the winner. Because at the end of the day, what are we fighting? We're fighting who has the strongest mind within these vessels. That's what, at the end of the day,
100%.
that's it.
100%.
Whatever sport it is, whatever it is, what mind within this vessel is going to win? Not what vessel. Because if it's just what vessel or
Fair.
what body, we'll just measure it and call it a day.
Fair.
But we're trying to measure the mind that's controlling the body, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, for me, it's really like, it's almost like I have seen lightning in a bottle. I've seen because I'm seeing now a mind that it's like, okay, from the outside, you look like an average Joe physically,
Sure.
right? But then when you really see your mindset, your focus, the grit, like this is actually a ticking time bomb. This guy is, this is actually like really dangerous. And to tap into that, in competitive sports, that's why I asked initially, are you competitive? Because
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, this is gold. This
Yeah.
is valuable if you just switched lanes.
Yeah.
Because that is what wins championships. That
Yeah.
is what wins Super Bowls. That is what, like, in the last 2 minutes,
Yeah.
creates a champion. It's
Yeah.
that mind. It's not the body. It's not the vessel.
No.
It's not the expertise or the,
As you said, there's the mind and certainly the vessel bit and then the heart, and for me, like the competitive side, I mean, not to say that it couldn't be there, but it's just like, I like really tucking into the ridiculous endurance things and then helping, or taking on something big to help a challenge, like a cause. But in terms of signing on to a team to go and win that Super Bowl, I'm like, meh.
that's and that's almost always how
So
it
weird.
is.
And no disrespect
No,
to
no,
it.
no,
Like,
but-
I'm not like, nah, sports, nah. Like,
Right.
no, I think anyone that's tucked into their passion, I think it's
Right.
fantastic. It's just for me and like my own.
I believe that's the
Hardcore.
balance. That is,
Yeah.
I believe that is the balance at work.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, when you see people who are really talented, they're usually a bit lazy. The balance.
Yeah.
When you see people who are really
Fair.
hardworking,
Fair, great call.
they're usually not that talented. The
Yeah.
balance, because having both hard work
Yeah.
and talent, you
Yeah.
would destroy. So there is always an
There's a
element of
cost.
balance.
Yeah, yeah.
So you in sports might be overkill. So that's
Yeah.
the balance. They remove the competitive nature.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, which I'm very happy for, and it's funny. It's funny and accurate you say that. It's like when I give a talk or I give a presentation. Say if it's in the U.S., it's usually the questions after are like, so how do you fund this? Like, how do you pay for this stuff? Right? Fair enough. In Europe, it's sometimes around that, but also like, how do you plan? What's the mindset? Like, and I really like that. That like, what's the kind of the grit? When I give talks in Australia, a common response is, mate, you look fit enough to do this stuff. How? Physically? No chance. Those arms? Hand cycled across Japan? Lie. It's like, I've got photos.
I got photos.
I got photos.
Oh my God. That's hilarious,
That's
though.
great.
But okay, so to be an American, how do you fund this?
Yeah.
No, but obviously it's the corporation, it is the people involved.
Yeah, so how I fund it, so every challenge so far I've paid out of my own pocket.
Really?
Everything, 100%. So I earn money from being a speaker, so like forwarded, right? Keynote speaking.
Okay.
And then and mix with my background in business design, facilitation. So I do a lot of work for like organizations here in Scandinavia on helping larger companies, mid to larger size companies, with their the sustainable development goals from the UN. So I've got a whole nother side of my world that focuses on business design that helps organizations operate in ways that help people in community in the best ways.
That's great. That's really good. And that's such a tool.
Yeah, 100%. So for me, like, I'm happy with the life and the career and everything that I've got going there. So I'm not a story of quit your job and get an Instagram account and a beautiful partner and a van, you'll be set forever. It's like, no, like whatever your passion is. I still have a foot in the corporate world and I love it. I really enjoy the work that I do. And the keynote speaking has been a heck of a lot of fun. Yeah, my life is very bizarre, and my clients that I work with, they love the challenges. They're fully supportive. Especially I told them about the Sky Run, they're like, yes, like, oh, we can't wait. I don't know if that means they want to see me dead or what. But
Dude, I think this is one of the few things that like everybody can't wait. Like this is one of the few things that it's really gonna. I mean, obviously everything you've done is uniquely spectacular in its way.
Yeah.
But the Sky Run, I feel, is another level, pun intended. Right? It's literally like, because you have to build something completely from scratch now.
Yeah.
It's not a bike you can buy off eBay.
Yeah. No, it's not a bike I can accidentally buy off eBay.
Right.
And it's a, and again, back to the support from all the people involved with NTNU. We've got an astronaut from NASA, from Texas involved, from the vision and steering community. I come from a small town. I don't know what I'm doing talking to astronauts. But incredible people that just hear the program and just want to reach out and help out. So thankfully for them, I've got men and women that give their time to help bring things to life. So yeah, like these things, I've got other stuff. Like,
right.
I don't get me wrong, the middle of my universe is the Sky Run now. When I'm done with that, I know what I'm going on to next. But that'll be a whole nother conversation. Yeah. It just keeps, it's just play.
No spoilers? No spoilers. Yeah. All right, next time. It means now we have a reason to invite you back.
Yeah, 100%.
But that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's really, it's not only creative, because even the way you find these problems, but now what is the process of doing it? Yeah. What is the process of saying, okay, coming up with a Sky Run, or coming up with, like, how do you search for this?
Yeah, I just do a lot of Google searching around man-powered airships and just finding different ways that we've interacted with the air, and there's been nothing that has been done with running.
But like, so not specifically the Sky Run, but how do you come up with how the next challenge should be about?
Great point on that, which leads me to another book. This one I know the author of. It's Stephen King, and very well-known guy. Yeah, so he's not one of his horror novels. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Like, how are we going to censor this bit out of the podcast? What is this one guy going to say now? But he's actually got a book I highly recommend. It's a book called On Writing. It's about his writing process and the headspace that he has to get into the creative realm to build what he builds in these books. Beautiful book. But in this book, he says he wants to be very clear that there's no such thing as an idea dump, right? Like some pile of ideas out there in the world that we need to be out there searching for. Rather, what we can do is, as actually made by a number of things that you brought up today, especially with focus and being aware that we want and have the drive, and we're willing to take on failure, risk, etc., that we want to build something big, then you'd be surprised at this. And this is Stephen King's thing. He said, two previously unconnected ideas cross paths in front of us all the time to create new ideas. And it's not like we need to be in a place or a headspace or with the right partner or whatever it is, and the right job to be able to be more creative. Creativity is happening around us at all times. It just depends on the headspace that we allow ourselves to be in to recognize when those intersections of ideas take place. And when I read that, I actually recently read that on a recommendation from a friend of mine. When I read that, I thought, wow, because that is absolutely what happens in my world. I've actually never sat down and Googled crazy challenge or crazy sports or hardest race. Like, no, it's people have reached out and recommended things. And when it comes in that way, it's usually something I pay attention to it if it really turns my stomach. It's like, oh God, it's ridiculous. And that's usually or like organized races. Excuse me. So the first 3 challenges were organized races. So Vasaloppet and then Unicon and then Off-Road Finnmark. And then the hand cycle across Japan invented it. Obviously, bicycling across the ocean invented it. Skyrun invented it. Right. So I'm more into that. I don't know if I plan to do another organized race again. Like,
I see.
Because I'm just having too much fun inventing stuff and working with people to bring it to life. But that is because people can't really email you and like, hey, we think it'd be great if you pogo stick backwards down Everest. Like, I don't know. Like, if you just have to be kind of aware of in conversations. Again, back to being on the boat. I was there on the boat looking at the sky, realized there were no planes or birds for days. and in looking around, I realized, sorry, hang on.
Take your time.
I get emotional. But in looking around, I realized like there was nothing in the sky. Then I started being playful with the sky. I started thinking about cycling. I thought, well, the past couple of challenges have been about cycling for me, but it'd be cool to run through the sky. Boom. Idea was born. And it's like, then you just solidify it in yourself of I'm going to do that. And then when you call, because if I would have called the Civil Aviation Authority up in Boda, I'd really like to, if you guys, have you heard of anyone doing this before? Because I like, get off the phone.
Exactly.
But it's like, I'm going to do this thing. Right. I've done a few things in the past, never run through the sky before, and I think you are the people to talk to. How do we do this?
You didn't ask.
Yeah, you didn't ask.
You told.
Just, with respect.
Of course,
because that's the other thing as well, is when it comes to sports like Vasaloppet or any other sport that I've taken on, I do not have a mind frame of, I'm here to do good in this. It's like, no, I'm here to do pretty average actually, but I'm going to do the thing. It's like, it's just the mindset.
It's funny. We've had a couple of, almost not a couple, every guest we've been very fortunate to have, and they all came with very inspirational pieces of tales, right? Yeah. And it's funny how they all land on mindset.
Is it right?
Right? They all land on mindset.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's... Yeah, we hear it a lot, maybe. Maybe it's a lot out there, but I don't really think people understand truly what that entails. Now, they might understand it. Okay, a mindset is something you can have as a tool to push you towards your goal, yes. But now, how do we, like any muscle, train a mindset? Did you train your mind to be like this? Or was this innate?
Great question. It's
because you said you'd even make the football team.
Yeah.
But then again, you're not competitive. You're not into that.
Exactly. So wasn't into it. I moved. I know for me, like I moved around a lot as a kid. So I had to be quite, there's the Carol Dweck, like the growth mindset. So you can have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. And that is kind of pushing barriers. And that is back to, the beautiful country we live in and things like Untitled and stuff that we've talked about in the past. Like it's just not buying into the closed-minded mindset around things and just giving yourself the permission to have an open story. And for me, that was kind of forced in at an early age because I was often quite new. At least once a year I'd move school, and it's for work, is just work purposes. We moved around quite a bit, and that taught me the importance of being quite open, and there was a bit of a resilience in that. So I think there was certainly some drive in there. Again, very values-driven, hardworking family. So I think there's probably some upbringing around there, but also idols. I think that's another thing that's really important.
Who are your idols?
Yeah, picking for me, and I know it's a bit controversial, but my idol, number one idol, is Roald Amundsen, actually the Norwegian explorer, adventurer. Right. We actually have the exact same birthday, so I think it's meant to be. That,
why is that controversial? Like,
oh well, I have said that in Norway a few times, and some people have gone like, well, he actually wasn't that nice of a person. And it's like, well, I'm not that fussed. Like especially at that day and age, to do the things that he did, he probably, his ethics or the way that he had to maybe cut some corners in his personal and professional life. Okay, do we have to do that now? Right. No, happy to say I'm not cut from that cloth. But I admire him for the drive that he had to get the job done.
Exactly. You can admire a musician's talent for music. It doesn't mean you admire his virtue for it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So,
but again, far be it for me to say he's my idol and say anything negative. Like
exactly.
And that's a good call out because for me, you're right. It's not from a controversial thing, and if it's controversial, it's not my controversy.
There you go.
But it's but I think kind of modeling your mindset around people that you meet, and I don't think they have to be famous people by any means. I've got a lot of people in my world. It's like people with great insights like you've just shared with me because we just met today.
Yeah, which
and
is
the
crazy.
things that I've learned from you now, mate, I would say that I would put you in an idol box for me.
Nah,
like you're a hell of a
Your
guy.
humility is astounding. Stop it.
No.
It is. We have met first time now, but we have exchanged words, and I've more or less stalked you. And
likewise. Yes, it's a match.
You said it's a match. But honestly, it's like a symbiosis. It's like you give and you receive. There is always something to learn. There is always another perspective or another point of view that you obviously lack. We are imperfect beings, right?
100%.
So you cannot come in with, as you said, I'm here to do good.
Yeah.
You've already lost.
Totally. Absolutely right.
So you have to come in with, what does this individual know that I don't?
Yeah.
Because there must be something.
Yeah.
And now it's your duty, as you said, to do good, right? It's your duty to find out what that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel if you dig, you're going to find it. Everyone has something that you don't know.
Yeah.
Even the dumbest guy, like you could say.
100%. And I think I think that stands in anything. But what a beautiful philosophy for life. I remember there was a Roy Rogers, this old kind of like Western kind of cowboy singer when I was a kid, and he said every stranger is just a friend he hasn't met yet. And just this really kind of positive, lovely mindset.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's like I think there's a lot of power in pre-crediting.
Pre-crediting. What do you mean?
Pre-crediting a person, a community, a city. I've never been to Chicago. I heard it's windy here. It's probably gonna suck. That like get rid of that mindset. Like pre-credit someone before you meet them. And because I know there's been many times in my life that especially when I was younger, that if I had a stronger awareness to pre-credit, like I would have given more people time before they passed away in my life.
I see.
Or before maybe I was only going to meet them for just a little while. And it's like, I mean, brass tacks, we've all beat about 2 to 3 billion other sperm to be here. So when we talk about adventurers and athletes, like we've all done pretty well in one race in particular, haven't we? So
actually, I'm going to ruin that myth right now.
What?
I'm going to ruin that myth.
What do you mean myth?
Well, actually what
happens... How do you just myth sperm and egg?
Actually what happens is the egg releases hormones that quote unquote chooses what sperm. You're chosen. You're agreed upon. So even
that's all right. So we're still chosen over 2 to 3 billion other sperm.
Yes. So even if you come 10th place.
But if I didn't feel like swimming, I wouldn't have been there to be chosen.
I'm going to ruin this. You're kidding me, man. You're amazing. I almost just broke the wall behind me.
Listeners are like, are they seriously talking about being sperm right now?
Hey, everyone has been.
Don't judge me. You are too.
Exactly.
That's right.
No one is above this.
No one's above this sperm conversation. No one's above the sperm conversation.
But yeah, I mean, I get your point, man. We're chosen. You won the race.
Exactly.
It's unique either way.
100%. But also, looking at this from interpersonal relationships, from romantic relationship to family to work, everyone in life that you interact with has made a conscious decision to give you that time with them. Right? And they say the greatest gift you can give anyone is the gift of your time.
Yeah.
So if you look at the exchange that everyone's willing to give you, and it's not like, okay, how's this conversation going to go?
Right.
You're like, no, like really tuck in, because that person's on their own journey. You don't know what's about them. Like just, and really, really, as you said, like, I'm not going to say any better than you do, but really value that person because you might learn from them.
Yeah.
And also you might give them something.
Definitely. It's, as I said, it's give and take, man. You will definitely, because everyone has something to give. And
100%.
You just need to know what type of energy you bring to the table, what type of face, what type of role you're playing.
Yeah.
You come with a mind of unity, like, you see the friend in every, you see the face of a friend in the face of every stranger, right?
Yeah.
You have to kind of come with that.
100%.
And that opens doors for discussions. Like, look what's going around right now in the world with COVID, with the disunity, with the...
100%.
There's a lot of disunity based on lack of communication and based on, I don't use the word labeling, but it's based on you can't be a good person if you call yourself this word.
Yeah, fair.
Wait, what? No, if you call yourself this word, it discredits everything else you have to offer.
Yeah.
That doesn't, like, this is Stone Age mentality. This
Totally
discredits
Stone Age
everything.
mentality.
Because even a murderer, if he tells you don't kill, he's right.
Yeah.
He's right.
Yeah.
He kills. That's another discussion.
Yeah, do as I say, not as I do.
But he's not wrong.
Yeah.
And that is my point. We are looking at what flag do you bear rather than what message do you carry.
Yeah.
Not if you even if you don't follow the message and you bear the wrong flag, quote unquote, what is the message should be the focus. And this opens room for dialogue. I feel that, okay, yes, the world is in constant flux. Right now, you could say materially we are at the best ever. You could say when it comes to education, technology, yes, we are at the best ever. It hasn't been before, but that actually makes where we are as a society worse. Yeah. How can we be at the best ever in these fields, but at the same time be so far behind when it comes to unity, spirituality, selflessness, the virtues and values that make us spiritual beings, or makes us have our role on this planet as virtuous spiritual beings clear? Yeah. How can we drop that? That is kind of, I would say, we're dropping the ball on this one, you know?
You know, I had a thought.
Go for it.
This was a little while ago, and I thought, you know, with all these demonstrations and protests happening in the States, and all important conversations that need to come out, but I'm a pretty visual person, so I was thinking, you know, because like I picture conversations of packets of information being shipped, right? I'm shipping a packet of confirmation or a conversation, and or information, and the problem is we've kind of lost the power of rhetoric. Like, I'm willing to hear you out. I might not agree, but I'm not going to hear you out just to wait for my turn to talk. But I'm going to take on what you're saying. Like, you know, like Socrates, like you're just really getting rhetorical about things. But imagine this, like, so just follow me on this journey. If packets of packets of information are like just picture these little packets, little boxes being shipped, and everyone has a position, shipping boxes all over the place. But the problem is, for conversations to function, they have to be two ways. So those packets have to be received, and these boxes aren't being caught. There's just more packets. So it's like, oh, you're sending boxes? Well, I've got boxes too. Just boxes everywhere. Right. But imagine if there was a protest. Imagine if there's a protest or a parade, like a march of people saying, we demand to hear more. We demand to understand you. Yeah. Like packet receiving. We demand your packets. Like, oh, actually, that's really nice to be heard. Exactly. It's kind of like, no, maybe I should actually start listening as well.
No, you're absolutely right. There has to be
rhetorical.
Right. No, there has to be someone at the receiving end as well. Then you can't just be sending empty boxes as well. It's they say
good point too.
Right.
100%.
The packages can be empty as well. So they say that the role of the listener and the speaker is as important. You know, where this package is going. Yeah. So the rhetoric, as you say, it couldn't be said better, man. We really need to learn how to listen. Yeah. Not listen just to speak back, but listen to understand and entertain, even if it's an idea that we disagree with. Sure, but let's hear it out. Because sometimes, I think this was Plato's method, sometimes having his student voice out his opinion would answer the student's own question. That's why, again, studies have showed that people who speak out loud to themselves tend to be better decision makers because they are reflecting, they're hearing it on the outside, they're reflecting their ideas out loud, and that usually tends to make your decision more logical rather than reflecting it inwardly. So talking to yourself out loud versus talking to yourself inwardly. Yeah. So just saying a dumb idea out loud will make you go, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I've said many dumb ideas out loud.
You just carried out
successfully. It just goes before I catch it. I just carry it out, and I made a career out of it. So, yeah, there we go.
No, man, but that's amazing. I could honestly say I genuinely am glad that you came to this podcast and that you shared what you shared with us today. We would be watching you with excitement to really see how this thing goes on.
No concern, just excitement.
Well, you do know a doctor now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there was a motive in meeting you, mate.
So honestly, if there's anything like we can do even to help the cause,
Beautiful.
even
Thank
we
you,
as
man.
VOTWEAR, as the company, can do to help the cause, let us
Fantastic.
know. This is something that we would love to back in any way possible.
Trust me, I'd say I count myself very fortunate by the people I get to meet and collect in my life, and I just stole all three of you, so you're stuck with me forever. So sorry, but no, seriously, thank you very much for having me on. It's been I've been looking forward to this, and It's been an absolute journey sharing some time with you, man.
Dude, you're welcome back anytime.
All right,
and thanks for everyone else.
Yeah, thank you.